and I also trust that you'll prove everyone who doubts you wrong.
And you are most of what I asked for, but everything that I need.
At the start, you said you wanted children, but now you're willing not to have them for the sake of us being together.
I think of all the couples this season, I'm happy that Tasha and Paul decided to stay together because I think they had the most potential. Ross and Thomas were next, but the problem is Ross, as we saw, she crumbled under pressure. With Matt and Adrian, I don't think they should have said yes because their differences are way, way, way too big to overcome. They will need a lot of work, so I don't get how we got to that. With George and Peggy, I'm saying she's a gold digger, but home visits changed her mind. That's all I'm going to say on that. And for Ella and JJ, well, stay till the end and hear my review. Anyway, I digress. Hey there, thanks for stopping by. It's your girl Valerie. Welcome to my channel. We're getting there. Thank you everybody that subscribed. We're nearly at 1,000 subs. Click the like button, turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Married at First Sight UK, Season 8, Episode 34. I'm sorry I'm on holiday this week. I'm in Rome, so I'll try and catch up with my reviews as much as I can, but obviously during the day I'll be very busy exploring. But anyway, so we pick up from George and Peggy. Is anyone surprised that Peggy changed her mind and said yes? Not really. I think her reaction at the home visit was enough to convince me that she was changing her mind about George, and she wanted to place the blame on her family. That way, if the marriage didn't work out, she would say, well, my family kept refusing to be a part of our lives and I missed them and this is why I went back. That's the impression that I'm getting. I don't think she said yes just because she had feelings for him, unless the edit didn't show this. I have a feeling the fact that he has money was one of the things that made her change her mind about him and decide that she wanted to stay married to George. I think had she gone to his house and had he been struggling, as her dad implied or as her mum implied, she would not have said yes. But because there was already that sort of cushion, financial cushion there, she said yes. And then you have Tasha and Paul. Tasha and Paul, they have been doing very well throughout the experiment and they seemed to be happy. Yes, there was the issue of the fight that they had that we never got the details on, but otherwise it seemed they were doing amazing. Obviously, Tasha at times does flare up and that was a concern for Paul. So Paul is the one who's leaving the apartment because Tasha, I think, lives up north, so it makes sense. And so I really don't know. I really don't know what the decision will be. You have Adrian and Matt. Adrian and Matt are a bit of a tricky couple for me in the sense that Matt wants kids, Adrian doesn't want kids. And the thing is, he can only not want kids or put it on pause for a bit. But the problem with females, we have a biological clock. And once that's done, you'd need things like surrogacy. A lot of things will become involved. And that's if she changes her mind. What if she says she completely doesn't want children? Is he happy to go along with it or what? It doesn't make sense to me that he's even considering this. I don't know this because his feelings are now involved, and maybe this is why it's important for people to withhold sex when they're in this experiment and get to know their partner and actually have, deep and thoughtful conversations. That way, when they say yes, they know what they're saying yes to. Personally, I don't understand why Ella and JJ even need to attend the final vows or the commitment, whatever commitment ceremony or whatever you call it. Even the expert, Paul, you can tell he's not convinced with what he's saying. He's just saying it because he has to say it, because it doesn't make sense. Why are they going to do final vows when they were never married in the first place, when they have a lot of issues in the second place? For Ella to say she's worried because JJ has raised concerns, she knows what she did. Nathaniel complained about the same thing. JJ is complaining about the same thing. She doesn't need to be married. She needs to go to counseling. That's my opinion. Because if she's constantly getting drunk and she's, behaving out of sorts while she's intoxicated, then she doesn't need to get married. She needs to go and see someone and get help manage the alcohol and also the causes, the reason behind her behavior when she's intoxicated. That's what she needs. She doesn't need to commit to anyone, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, then you have Adrian and Matt go and speak to their family. Matt speaks to his mom, and Adrian speaks to her grandma. Her grandma was right that she needs to mellow down a bit. She cannot be on 10 all the time. She cannot be on 10. It's exhausting being on 10 all the time for most people. I know, I'm not a hyper person, so I can't, attest to that. But I think it would be exhausting. And I think it would be exhausting if two people that function on 10 were together and in a marriage. Who would pacify who? Who would slow down who? Her grandmother's right to say she needs to mellow down. Obviously, there is the concern about the children and the fact that Adrian doesn't want children. And Matt is sort of debating whether or not to say yes, even though he wants children. He knows his mom wants grandchildren. It doesn't make sense to me, as I've said before. It does not make sense to me. I feel like if they cannot agree on this before their final vows, then there's no need for the two of them to even consider saying yes. Because you can never change you might change someone's opinion to have children, but someone who's always wanted children, for them to suddenly say, I don't want children, that's a big ask. That's a big ask. So I don't know why Matt is even considering it, given the fact that his mother is even saying that, he's always wanted children. He knows his mother always expected him to have children. And so for him to suddenly say, well, I'll leave it, doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to me. And I think it doesn't make sense to his mom. And that's why she seemed upset. But anyway, so Paul and Tasha meet up with their friends to have a conversation on whether they feel like their relationship will work, because they've been one of the best couples in the experiment. But it's interesting that Tasha's friend mentioned that, oh, I don't know if you'll cope with all that shouting, if you've been, able to control your shouting or something to that effect. And it's like, how bad is the shouting? How bad does she behave when she's upset? Please, somebody make it make sense, because we didn't get to see it. And so for her own friend to bring it up raises a lot of questions. And even she looked at her friend. You could see the way she looked at her friend. She wasn't happy that her friend brought it up. But I think the producers must have said to the friend, we need you to bring up the comment about her, sort of being very combative or very argumentative. And, you need to address that with her. I think her friend is right. I think Paul's friend is right. The fact that Paul is a very quiet guy who appears to love a lot of peace and quiet, even though he's looking for someone to bring him out of his shell. And so the idea that he's now married to someone who sort of disrespects him, irregardless of him having told her that I worry about your behavior in front of my friends. And then she makes these jokes that she thinks are funny, similar to George, but are not received the way she thinks they're going to be received. That's the problem. So I get where both his friend is coming from and where Tasha's friend is coming from. I think Tasha needs a lot of work. I think just like Ella, they need to go and see, maybe not the same counselor, but maybe in the same building, and just see if they can get help, because they come with a lot of baggage that I don't think their partners are prepared to deal with at this point in time. So maybe it might be they need counseling and then revisit and see if they still want to stay married. Yeah, they can continue the relationship, but I wouldn't say married. I would say maybe dating, or not make a decision to say yes, we want to stay married, or no, we don't want to stay married, and give each other time to grow away from each other, and then see how it goes. It was interesting that Paul did a live with Thomas and his friend Tristan, and Tasha sort of came into the chat, and you could see the boys were very uncomfortable. So I don't know what's going on there, whether Paul's friend feels some type of way because he knows Tasha has seen what he said, although Tasha didn't really seem fazed by it. So I don't know. They were joking about it, so I don't know. So Adrian and Matt had the next ones to say their final vows. And I am very worried because they both have very big concerns, in the sense that Matt wants children and is worried that Adrian doesn't want children. Adrian says she wants someone with an outgoing personality, but that's not who Matt is. And so the things that they want in one another are things that are very difficult to change. You can't just ask someone, okay, change your mind and say you want children, or can you be a bit more outgoing? And then suddenly they do it. That's not possible. So I am happy that Adrian said, she's worried that Matt might not be looking at long term, in the sense that he says he's happy to go without children. He's happy to make certain changes in order to be with Adrian, including moving. But is he looking at the long term picture, or is he just looking at, let's go into the world, let's see if we work very well in the real world, and then if we work real well, then we'll decide whether or not we want children. I think the two of them need to go to couples counseling as soon after they made their decision. They needed to sign up for couples counseling because they need to address the concerns that they have with a mediator. They need to see if this is something they can overcome or not. If it's not, then they go their separate ways before anyone gets hurt any further. But I don't think it's a good idea for them to just blindly say, okay, yes, we're saying yes, and we're moving on with life, because those things are still going to be there and they're going to still need to be addressed. They would rather address them sooner rather than later. I don't know why they didn't continue to address them on the couch with the experts there to see if they could get help to overcome that. I know Adrian says she's looked after people most of her life, so she doesn't want to look after anyone else. And it's like, well, that it's a bit tricky for me, because I think she needs to speak to someone and explain why is it exactly. Is it just the caring for someone she's worried about? Does she feel like Matt will not be able to be a father figure and be present in his children's life to sort of do part of the work that needs to be sort of inputted in raising children? What is it? I think that's what they need to address. And then for Matt, they need to understand, why is he so, is this just who he is, that he's just this quiet guy who doesn't like confrontation, doesn't is not outgoing, is an introvert, or is there something else? Is there a reason behind why he behaves in that way? And if they're both happy with the responses, then they can make a decision as to whether they want to continue this marriage or not. But long term, I don't see it unless they get help with it. I think they need help. That's just my opinion. I'm happy they said yes. As I say, I always root for love, but they need a lot of work. So Ella and JJ meet up with their friends to have a conversation. And Ella modified her statements or the issues to such an extent that she downplayed them so much that it seemed like there was nothing. And it's like, if this girl is really Ella's friend, then she knows how Ella behaves when Ella's drunk. And for her not to call her out on it, and for her to sort of make it seem like, it wasn't really that serious. Nathaniel spoke about this. JJ spoken about the same thing. Her friends must know about it. Her friends must know about it. They must have seen it at some point in their sort of friendship. And I would assume they've raised concerns with Ella. And so for them to not say anything makes me believe that Ella said to them, don't say anything negative and don't bring up that you've seen this already. And so for Ella to insist, oh, I really want JJ in my life. Well, if you're, being derogatory and you're being disrespectful towards someone, how do you expect them to want to stay in a relationship with you? How do you expect them to continue to want to pursue anything with you? And you can see JJ's worn out. JJ's worn out. I think the only reason why JJ stayed with Ella is because Ella's trans. I'm sorry. I think he doesn't want the backlash from the LGBTQ community, because otherwise he's going to be sort of labeled as someone who's being, the way sort of Nathaniel was labeled after he split up from Ella. I think that's what JJ is afraid of. And his friend was right to say, when you first meet someone, you don't see their shortcomings. Ella seemed like a shiny object. She seemed like she was amazing as compared to Bianca. And then the more he got to know her, the more he realized that actually she was worse than Bianca. The outside was amazing, but the inside was terrible. And this is his karma for the way he treated Bianca. I don't have any sympathy for JJ. I'm sorry. I do not have any sympathy for him. It is what it is. He ripped what he sowed, and so we have to keep it moving. It's a pity he didn't decide to give, Bianca an opportunity, or he didn't want to get to know Bianca to see if they could develop something. So it is what it is. Tasha and Paul's final files were amazing. I loved the fact that they were very emotional. Yes, there is issues in this relationship, but one thing I like is Tasha came from so much dysfunction that she needed someone like Paul. She needed to know that they're great guys, that are loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic, that are uplifting, and that are supportive and will stand behind their partner no matter what goes wrong. And so for her to have this in Paul was a very good opportunity for her. It's a pity we're all not perfect. We're all not perfect. We cannot hold, no one is perfect. But I think she struggled with reading the room. I think because she comes from so much dysfunction, she's used to dealing with situations totally different to how Paul, who's come from a loving, supportive family, is used to dealing with situations. And this is why Paul struggles when she gets into that zone where she's going off and she's being loud and she's being whatever she does when she's upset, whether it's yelling, screaming, shouting. He hasn't said anything about name calling, but he just doesn't like the way she talks. And so for Tasha, she needs to learn. She needs to learn that she won the golden ticket in this season of Married at First Sight. She had the most amazing guy, followed by Matt. Matt was amazing as well. Matt, Paul, and Thomas were amazing guys who really wanted to get married and were willing to do anything and everything to make their marriages work. And so I hope, if nothing else, if they're still married, I'm not sure whether they're still married because of how awkwardly everybody behaved in the Instagram live that they were having. As soon as Tasha came in, I don't know whether they were worried that, people would know that Tasha and Paul are still married, or whether they were worried that people would know that they have split up. But something happened, and the tension, there was a bit of tension, but it wasn't like serious tension. It was just joking with Tasha, sort of teasing Paul's friend. And so I'm happy they both said yes. I am happy they both said yes. If for nothing else, Tasha deserves she doesn't deserve, she needs a man like Paul, because Paul is going to help her become the best version of herself. My only concern is I don't know whether they're living together. I know Paul had gone to Ireland for a wedding. I follow him on Instagram. He's one of my favorites from this season, if not my favorite sort of spouse on this season of Married at First Sight. So he went to a friend's wedding, and I don't know whether he's come back to go to live with his parents, or whether he's living with Tasha, or what's happening. His friend Tristan was also there in that live. And so I don't know, because the friend was trying to sort of ease the tension with Tasha and try and make it seem like, he was just raising his concern, but he wasn't against the relationship. So I don't know whether they're still married today, but I think they make an amazing couple. If Tasha can work on herself, and the only way she can work on herself is get some help, and she can go out and see a counselor, a psychiatrist, mental health practitioner, somebody to help her address her baggage or offload her baggage. That way she can show up to Paul as her best self. That's just my opinion, but I'm happy they both said yes. Okay, I'm going to say this. Please don't, it's just my opinion. I don't mean anyone any harm. You know, with my reviews, I try and give an honest opinion. I feel like Ella was brought in for an arc. I think because they'd previously had, gay couples, they decided they wanted to cross over and try and bring in a trans person. And so when they brought Ella, they didn't expect her to have the issues that came up with her marriage with Nathaniel. And so I remember Nathaniel saying, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, I think he sort of implied that he was just a supporting actor and Ella was supposed to be the main character. And so the idea that Ella would come up and say her vows first, and then after she says her vows, in her vows, she says, I've decided I need someone who accepts me for me, who accepts me fully. She was telling her friend that JJ was very supportive of her being trans. He was asking questions. He was very supportive. He wasn't critical like Nathaniel. And then suddenly she's now saying, no, he didn't accept her fully and he had issues with her. And then you have JJ having to say, oh, you're an inspiration. How is she an inspiration? If you're saying she gets drunk, she starts yelling at you. Nathaniel is saying that she got drunk at their honeymoon and proposed a threesome with someone. So make it make sense. Who is she a role model for? Who is supposed to emulate what she's done? Please help us to understand. She came into the experiment on her honeymoon, had issues with her spouse, finding out about her former career, and the issue that she was trying to solicit another person to come and have sex with the two of them, her and Nathaniel, and then coming back into the experiment, criticizing her husband for not wanting to have sex with her, then seeing somebody else's husband, and then falling in love or falling in like with that husband, and leaving the experiment and coming back with somebody else's husband to say they are now a couple and they are willing to they want the experts to come and help them build their relationship. And then somehow that husband now reveals that Ella got intoxicated and she was calling him names. she changed her hair color because the new partner's ex-partner had brunette hair. Make it make sense. Who is she role modeling for? Who is she being a role model for? Because I personally don't understand it. I feel like the producers wanted to give her a positive arc. I think they wanted to be this inspiration, or that was the goal in her coming into the experiment, so that when she goes out, she is an advocate for trans people, because she says, I hope I've inspired a little girl or a little boy, and you have, shown a little boy and a little girl that they can be loved. I think this was all an act. I'm sorry. JJ and Ella, I think, was an act. And sadly, JJ got fed up before the end of the show and decided to call out Ella on her crap, because Nathaniel didn't say anything until after they'd left, until after he had left the experiment. Whereas JJ got fed up and he started calling her out on her bad behavior. So how then is he saying you're a role model? Make it make sense. I don't get it. I really don't. And I'm so confused as to why we have to sit through this mess. And then Ella pretends to have a breakdown because, oh, she's had to break up with JJ. She broke up with JJ because she knew JJ was going to break up with her. The producers told her this, and this is why she decided to go into a monologue. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but from everything I've seen, that's the impression that I'm getting. But anyway, I digress. Thanks, guys, for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And click on the link in my video to watch my review from episode 33. Bye, guys.